I have whatever the opposite of a recommendation is, to make for a cottage my wife and I booked on Airbnb. Maybe someone can help fill in the details I'm having trouble remembering. I hope so. My wife and I live in Virginia along with our dog, Algernon. We both work and have a decent amount of friends, or friendly acquaintances at least, so our lives are relatively busy. Now don't get me wrong, we're both homebodies as much as we can manage. But the social pull of the occasional brunch, and the need to buy groceries, fold laundry, walk the dog, etc., tend to fill up a calendar. It's because of all this that whenever we can get away for a weekend, we try to. Last fall, my wife Olivia was finishing a months-long project at work, and as it happened, I had a week or so of twiddling my thumbs on the horizon at my job. We decided to seize the opportunity and take a 3-day weekend in the Blue Ridge Mountains. My coworker, Martin, invited himself along, but being friends outside of work, we were happy to have him. Now here's where I have to start relying on some kind of fuzzy memories. We found a place to rent on Airbnb for a steal. I recall the host saying that there was a cancellation, but when I later went back to check the website, I found nothing. My bank account and my emails, nothing. No mention of the cottage at all. I call it a cottage, but if you're thinking of a log cabin in the woods, you're picturing it wrong. Think more Rivendell from the Lord of the Rings movies, but with a chef's kitchen. You get the idea. I had asked my wife what she thought, and she matter-of-factly said, "Honey, I would fuck that house." So it was settled. A week later, we left. I couldn't tell you where we drove exactly after we got off the Skyline Drive. My Maps app doesn't seem to remember either, but the mountains were beautiful as we slowly curved around the meandering scenic roads, yellows, tawny reds, campfire oranges, and blues as they stretched onward into the distance. We took our time, stopped at overlooks, bought some fresh vegetables at a roadside stand. At the vegetable stand, the seller, a friendly woman in a thick sweater and jeans, asked us where we were staying. I told her. Now, I can't remember what I said, but I can remember the look in her eyes, a look of fear. Warning, I now know. She had gripped my wrist so tightly but then said, "Enjoy your stay. It's a really beautiful cottage." "What was that?" my wife asked as we drove away. "I don't know, mountain flirting?" I joked uneasily, watching the seller's terrified face as it shrank away in my rearview mirror. Martin's blue Jetta was parked next to the cottage as we pulled up. We took the place in through the sap-freckled windshield of our SUV. Large, vaguely Nordic, in pale creams and whites with an A-frame roof and a wrap-around screened-in porch. I can still picture it perfectly in my mind. I've even tried to draw it a few times. I'm no great artist, but I can draw well enough. Even so, the pictures always end up looking like heavy-handed scribbles. We took our groceries and bags out of the car and looked forward to sun-dappled hikes and cool, lazy evenings drinking wine and listening to the music of the crickets. Martin greeted us at the door after we passed through the rocking chair-laden porch. I say greeted, but really he stood in the doorway as Olivia opened it. He looked, I don't know, tired, I suppose. "Hi, Marty," my wife said, throwing her arms around him in an ungraceful, very Olivia hug. Martin stared at me over my wife's shoulder, his eyes widening in a look somehow reminiscent of the vegetable seller's. His bottom lip was trembling slightly, and as I knitted my brow in confusion, he whispered, "Don't." Olivia continued, exuberant and oblivious. "My God, I feel like it's been months. What about this place? It's fucking gorgeous, right? Where's... Fuck. I try to remember it all, but some of the details still evade me. Come in. Oh my goddess, Livy, yes. Gorgeous. Wait until you see the view from the balcony off the loft. Chills. But first, wine." Just like that, Martin exploded into his usual extroverted self. Olivia had pushed past him and boom. A joke, I wondered, as I hefted a duffel onto my shoulder and held the tiny handle of my wife's rolling suitcase. Maybe Martin had run into the same vegetable seller on the way up. He did have a sometimes overly dry sense of humor. I justified the shift in my mind. The commonalities of the afternoon were Coincidence. A feeling needling in the back of my mind told me something was wrong, but I ignored it. I was being paranoid. As I stepped through the door, I was struck by the beauty of the space. There was an ethereal, almost heavenly quality to it. Large picture windows ran up the far side of a great room, split by a loft where a number of plush leather club chairs sat partly hidden by a carved wooden railing. The main seating area was sunken into the floor, an inviting nest of stylish Scandinavian mid-century furniture, and a cast-iron standalone fireplace. Otis Redding's voice drifted through the air in a cut of the dock of the bay I'd never heard. "No TV, huh?" I remarked, putting down the bags. "And you'll have to thank the host for that, and for the wine," Martin said, pouring another 2 glasses of red to join his own. "Don't worry, Will, there's a record player. Take off your shoes and dust off some of those moves I saw at your wedding." He must have seen me frown or something, because he continued with, "Oh, come on, man. If you're so hard up for a screen to sit in front of." I remember the website saying there was a TV in the basement. My wife's and Martin's idea of relaxation was slightly different from my own. They'd dance and sing and get drunk, but I needed a ball game from time to time. It could wait a while, though, I thought. For now, I'd enjoy the serenity of our little woodland paradise. I don't remember much of the rest of the day. We drank wine, I'm sure, and I seem to remember helping Olivia make a grilled cheese sandwich with a cast-iron skillet and press. All in all, the day and night was uneventful, until around 2 a.m. Olivia shook me awake from a sound sleep. "Will, we forgot Algie in the car. He's been out there for hours. Baby, he's probably so scared. Can you go get him out?" She was frantic, panicking. "Liv, we took Algernon to a doggy daycare before we left," I croaked groggily. "He's fine, honey. You were the one who walked him in." It took a while for the hyperventilation to calm down, but as soon as it did, she was out like a light. I wasn't so lucky. I lay awake for some time, picturing the face of the vegetable seller. She had seemed so frightened, like a parent watching their child follow a ball into a busy street. I closed my eyes and tried to think of anything else, tried to imagine the next few days. I might have actually started to drift off when I heard the scratching. Being a dog owner, it's not unusual to hear scratching on a door at night, but Algernon was nearly 100 miles away. It was the door to the hall, a distinct, slow scratching. I sat up to get a better listen and thought I saw the doorknob turn ever so slowly. I whispered loudly toward the door, "Martin, we're fine. Olivia was just..." The handle bolt clicked and the door creaked open about a foot. "Martin, we're fine." I waited for a while, watching the door, but it remained still. After a while, I went back to uneasy sleep. In the morning, I asked Martin and Olivia about the night before. Olivia couldn't remember her late-night panic, and Martin said he had slept like a log the whole night. I had heard the scratching, seen the door. I had comforted Olivia. At least I thought I had. "Maybe this place is haunted," Martin said, smirking as he stirred a mimosa pitcher. Olivia giggled. "I think if I died in a place this nice, I might have to haunt it too." The two of them were so peppy, glowing even. I felt as though I had pulled a double shift on a factory line. The mimosas did help, though the sparkling wine the host had left, just like the Shiraz the day before, had a slight acrid tang, like licking a coin on the first sip. Evelyn Estate, I noted, a name that seemed familiar enough, but one I would be sure to forget in future grocery trips. "Hey Marty, did you pass a vegetable stand on the way in?" I asked, trying to reason around his odd greeting. "No, we came straight here. Why? You didn't buy any mountain mushrooms, did you?" He hung on the quip, smiling. "Oh, come on, that was a joke." I felt nauseous all of a sudden. His joke that I had assumed from the day before. Don't what? I ruminated the rest of the morning, and as Olivia cleared the champagne flutes and juice cup from the table, I asked if anyone wanted to go for a hike. "Oh, babe, we were going to go through the vinyl collection and see what gems this place is hiding, but you should go. Work up that feral mountain musk." I forced a smile. If Martin wasn't gay, I might have been concerned about Olivia's rebuke. A part of me actually yearned for a feeling as trivial as jealousy. What I felt was dread, something heavy, growing, but just out of sight. I decided to set out alone, knowing that the crisp autumn air would do me some good. Perhaps it was the unfamiliar setting of the cottage that was unsettling me. How long had it been since I had last slept outside of my own bed? The cottage was perfect in every conceivable way, from the marble-countered kitchen to the spa-like bathroom, but it wasn't home. I hiked a trail that ran just behind the cottage, a hilly, beaten path with plenty of boulders and climbs to challenge my body so my mind could rest. The air did seem restorative, and as I rested on a fallen tree at the peak of a rise, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Now understand, at work I am practically attached to my phone, an occupational codependency that follows me everywhere I go. It was in that moment, looking out over a shallow valley, that I realized I hadn't once thought of the thing since arriving. Maybe this place is special in some inscrutable way, I thought. My mind might have searched for some whispering insidiousness, because it's detoxing from stress. I pulled out my phone, promising myself that it would just be a glance. 8 missed calls, 23 missed texts. The screen went black. Dead battery. My mind grasped at the void. What had happened? It's Saturday. Algernon? Was he okay? If not, why 23 text messages? No, something else. I thought of grim possibilities as I hurried home, nearly rolling my ankle a half-dozen times. I must have gotten service momentarily while I was resting. How long was whoever trying to contact me? I walked and walked and walked. For too long. The trail was a straight shot. Somewhat challenging, yes, but there were no intersections, no branches. I guessed that my hike out was around an hour, perhaps 2 miles at my leisurely pace. I had been walking back for much longer. Where was the cottage? I kept walking and then backtracked, breaking twigs and noting them as I saw them again. I scrutinized the trail, stopping every 100 feet to look around. Where was the damned cottage? My stomach twisted as I considered my predicament. I hadn't brought food or light. I wasn't an outdoorsman, not really. I was hungry. I would have to sleep outside, shivering in the cold, stomach rumbling. Would Olivia come looking for me? I saw her face in my mind, wandering aimlessly through the dark, calling for me and feeling more and more hopeless, just as I was. I remember sitting down on the path and crying, actually crying. Why didn't I turn back at the vegetable stand? The sun was sinking lower and lower into the sky, and then I saw the light from the picture windows of the cottage off in the distance. I had crossed by the same stretch a half-dozen times. It wasn't there. Now it was. I stared at the pointed slivers through the blackening silhouette of 1,000 impassive autumn leaves. Like a campfire, I thought, inviting, but hiding a monster just outside its glow. I wanted to leave, to get Olivia, get in the car, and leave. I threw open the front door, but as soon as I entered the cottage, my ordeal seemed somehow distant, dampened. Olivia and Martin sat beside the fireplace as it crackled in time with the dock of the bay. The wine looked refreshing, and the glow that permeated the space comforted me like the easy summers of childhood. "Hi, babe, where did you get off to?" Olivia asked, lazily slurring her words. I remember my search for the cottage clearly now. I have the benefit of perspective, but at the time, I couldn't give my wife a truthful answer. I couldn't remember. It wasn't important. "Just popped out for a minute, Liv." She smiled melancholically. Be waiting till the morning, sick. Be waiting till the morning, sick. Be waiting till the morning, sick. I hadn't noticed the record skipping. I was jolted awake by the sound of breaking glass. Disoriented, my head pounding, I looked around the sunken living room. The fire had died in the fireplace, giving the air an oddly stale smell of ash. I was alone in the dark. The middle of the night, I guessed, though my phone was still in my pocket, still dead. Another glassy eruption. It was close, above me, the loft. I darted up the stairs, my trail-blistered feet sending angry pulses up my legs. There was a breeze and... "Marty, what the hell are you..." Martin threw another wineglass at the floor. A single lamp dimly lit the surroundings. He looked gaunt, his skin devoid of its usual color. All over his arms were small, dark rings and circles. I stepped closer. No, not rings. Bite marks. He grabbed another glass and turned toward me, his face, this time, unmistakably terrified. "Marty, what's going on? What happened to you?" The opening bass line to "The Dock of the Bay" began to play loudly from below, and Martin seemed to flinch. This song again? "Liv," I called down. "I'll be sitting till the evening comes." "Olivia." She didn't answer. "Marty, buddy, talk to me." He was trembling, shaking. "I saw him, Will. I remember." "Who? Saw who, Marty?" The music was getting louder. "She'll never let us go. We shouldn't have come." "She? Olivia? What the fuck are you talking about? What happened to you?" "She's always here, with them. Always watching, pulling, always watching. Slowly and slowly." He was doing a sort of shifting, jittery dance, like a child that needed the potty. This song was always playing. Otis Redding was never my fave. He stopped abruptly, his eyes widening in an exaggerated, animalistic terror that pushed into me like a knife. No, she's... I turned my head slowly and felt something unseen brush against my arm. The song was blaring, seeming to nearly vibrate my teeth in my mouth. I turned back to Martin and he was on the balcony. He looked back toward me. "I can't." With an almost graceful agility, he stepped up onto the railing and leaned forward, disappearing over the edge. "Marty, no!" I screamed, as I helplessly watched the split second unfold. I heard my scream. The song had stopped. Marty hadn't made a sound as he fell, but there was a wet thud. I ran over to the balcony, afraid to lean over too far. I couldn't see his body through the opaque blackness below, but I knew he was gone. What had made him do it? Who was she? What? My thoughts spread and thinned and dissipated, muddied by fatigue and shock. My head thrummed, but the rhythm in my temples carried my feet back to my wife. Olivia was sound asleep as I entered the bedroom. I locked the door. I was so tired, so weary, and as I lay my head down, I heard the faint sound of a child crying. So tired, like drowning beneath the weight of spent time. I was awake but lay with my eyes closed for a moment. The light on the other side of my lids seemed bright. I could hear something faint in the background, comforting, melodic, beautiful. My head hurt. No, my head pounded, coursing icy waves of nauseating pain that jarred my brain in a rhythmic tapping. I felt something coarse and rough beneath me, not the expensive feeling sheets of the bed. The familiar, enchanting melody sounded distant, hollow. The light was too bright, but I laboriously pulled open my eyes. Marty. The events of the night before came rushing back. I was on the floor of the sunken living room. How? I heard Olivia humming through the ringing in my ears, a reverberating echo of the tapping. I pulled myself to my feet. "Olivia." "Morning, babe. You look like you slept well. I'm just making a pitcher of Bloody Mary, extra spicy, how you like it. You want one?" She was stirring and swaying her hips to whatever song was in her head. "Olivia Martin, last night." "Who?" She smiled, radiant, beautiful. A divine portrait of my wife in a scarcely buttoned shirt that ended mid-thigh. One of mine. Marty. A sob caught in my throat. "He killed himself last night. He jumped off of the balcony." Her face softened into a look of vaguely maternal concern. "Oh, babe, that's terrible. Was he one of your baseball players?" "No, Olivia. Martin Harris, our friend. The one who came with us on this trip. Look, if this is a joke, Liv, it's fucked up. He's dead, Liv. He's fucking dead." She carried a glass over to me, her face bearing the slightest touch of confusion. "Will, I can see you're upset, but we came on this trip alone. Our romantic getaway, remember?" She ran a finger along the inside edge of the button-down shirt to her navel. "I don't know any Martin." She took a sip of the drink and licked her bottom lip. "It's just us." No, Olivia, I'm fucking serious. Martin, Will, you're confused, stressed. Maybe we could just... She closed on me slowly, sliding the shirt up over a bare hip. I could feel the inviting heat of her body, the curve of her... No. Fuck, I tried to focus. Martin. He was dead. Olivia, something's not right here, with this place. Don't you see that? That damn song, the wine. When was the last time any of us ate? Everything was coming together, all of the little details. Martin had said he remembered. What were we forgetting? Olivia flexed her hips against me, shrugging the shirt off of one of her shoulders. Her seduction. The cottage, I thought. It's all a seduction. I pulled away from her and ran up the stairs to the loft. Martin was there. He had to be. I saw him jump. As I crossed the loft, a shard of glass bit into my foot, sending me hobbling toward the balcony. The glass that Martin broke the night before. It had happened. I wasn't crazy. I opened the doors, my head in the vice-like grip of a tightening migraine. I looked. Martin. His body, thin and pallid as the night before, sprawled over a wide granite knob that jutted from the earth. But he was mutilated, shredded, innards scattered, and muscles torn from bone as if by some wild animal. What had happened to him? What? I heard the music begin to play again, sitting in the morning sun. I hopped away from the balcony. Olivia, he's down there, he's... Suddenly, my thoughts poured out of my head and over my shoulders, washing me in a warm release like coming home from the snow. I heard the shard crunch in my foot as I brought it down. This really is an amazing song. The cottage is magical. I walked toward the stairs, gazing down on the room below. Olivia lay on the sofa, propped up on her elbows, bouncing a raised foot behind her to the rhythm of the song. The shirt she had been wearing sat crumpled on the floor. Our romantic getaway, I remembered. Just us. I awoke on the sofa, my head resting on Olivia's chest. My mind was foggy but light. Olivia slowly stroked my hair, and as I stirred, she said, I was wondering when you'd wake up. Were we talking about something? I wouldn't say we talked much, she grinned. I felt in that moment like I was missing a word on the tip of my tongue. Something slightly elusive, but ultimately unimportant. How long have we been here? I asked. She sighed. Not nearly long enough, but you should really go for a hike. You said the whole way here that you didn't want to sit around the whole time like a vegetable. Vegetable. So how about it? Why don't you go work up that feral mountain musk? Feral. I felt a wave of deja vu come over me. Not a bad idea. I might just pop out for a bit. The words came out of my mouth without thinking them, but I had some nascent misgivings about the notion of a hike. Had I heard some story about a mountain lion attack? A hiker who had gotten lost? I couldn't remember. Actually, Liv, I think I remember something about there being a TV in the basement. I might check to see if a game's on. I felt her chest rising and falling beneath my head, her breath quickening slightly. Don't. She had whispered the word with a sudden urgency. There was something foreboding and familiar about it and how she said it. But as I craned my neck to see her face, she looked into my eyes through heavy lids and slurred out, Don't forget your drink, babe. The door to the basement wasn't obvious, a short door, perhaps 4 feet tall, in the hallway to the bedrooms. I ducked low before carefully descending a flight of steep, squeaky stairs. My foot hurt like I had accidentally caught a nail or something, but kept heading downward. I heard the sound of static before I noticed the blue-white glow of the television. Did Olivia leave it on? I wondered, as I rounded a cobwebby timber wall. The television was small with wood veneer sides and large silver knobs. I sat down in front of it, trying to remember why I had come down in the first place. The dark little space had no discernible lighting other than the undulating speckles of the screen, but still it felt right. Ah, the photos, I thought, eyeing a tattered shoebox, white edges of Polaroids peeking over the top. I was getting them for... I tried to conjure the name for the face in my mind. That smiling, beautiful, familiar face. What was her name? Honey, I would fuck that house. Oh, she was funny. Just us. And sultry. The photos focused me back. Faded pictures of a happy family. A little girl on a rope swing pushed by her father, I supposed. A boy and his mother beaming in dappled light. A teenage girl painting the siding of a dollhouse. The little girl again, riding a bike with streamers on the handlebars, her mother cautiously hovering behind. The hairstyles and clothing suggested late 60s or early 70s. They seemed happy, contented. That sound again. I put a few of the photos in my pocket for... What was her name again, and why did my foot hurt? The sound of the static was so loud it reminded me of... There was a man. Oh, what had happened to him? And there was a... Marty. Olivia. It came rushing back, and a voice rasped right behind me.
You don't belong here. Get out.
My head was suddenly stricken with a blinding pain, like someone had struck it with an axe. I looked around frantically, my vision blurry.
You don't belong.
I felt a sudden chill overtake me, and then heard quick footsteps in the distance. The stairs. Will! Olivia screamed from above. Olivia! I shouted back, my voice hoarse, my throat dry. I trudged toward the stairs, limping past my agonizing foot. I felt so weak, feeble, resting at each of the stairs in order to keep going. Olivia screamed again, a piercing, guttural scream. I pulled myself through the small door and onto the dusty floor of the cottage. I could see footprints in the grime, bloody, smeared footprints, small footprints, large ones, and a distinct set heading away from the basement door, slimy, long, and black. With great effort, I pulled myself to my feet, rubbing something sticky from my eyes. Blood. Olivia's continued gut-wrenching cries pushed me forward, down the hall and into the... I stopped dead for a moment, shaking in buffeting waves of horror at what I saw. The thing looked up at me, through black eyeless sockets. It was humanoid, with glistening skin in mottled gray and white, washed out further by its bloody, lipless mouth.
Get out!
It shrieked. Olivia was beneath it. She didn't even look like my wife, thin and pale, missing shredded chunks of her thighs and shoulder. The thing jerked toward her belly and pulled its head back, stretching mangled flesh and bloody pink viscera before gnashing and gulping it down. It was eating her. Olivia pushed and scratched and screamed, and I finally pushed past the terrified shock. Get away from her! I croaked, running forward and ramming into the thing. It tumbled over, and I grabbed Olivia, helping her onto her feet. She could barely walk, heaving and retching as she stumbled. I could barely carry her weight, weak and wincing with every step. The door. Just make it to the door. Foot after foot, we were getting closer. A few more steps. 2. 1. I passed the threshold. I felt the evening air of the porch. We were free, safe. Olivia screamed, her body lurching backward. The thing held her wrist, pulling Olivia's chewed, bloody arm. No! Olivia shrieked, the thing's fingers tearing flesh and exposing bone below. I pulled Olivia, leaning my weight forward and bracing against the doorframe. I pulled and pulled and pulled, and the two of us tumbled forward and onto the porch. Olivia continued to scream in heaving cries, and as I looked at her, I saw why. Her left arm ended at a tattered stump right at the elbow. I didn't look back as I dragged us across the porch and toward our SUV, but I heard the ripping of meat and the grating of teeth on bone behind me. I don't remember our drive or leaving the cottage. I awoke in a hospital. The doctor said that when we were found, we were dehydrated and extremely malnourished. When Olivia and I didn't come to work on Tuesday, our employers had called our phones. It had actually been Algernon's doggy daycare that eventually called the police, or rather animal control, on Thursday. We were reported missing when no one could account for our whereabouts. That was 6 days before we were eventually found. Olivia retched and shook constantly that first day in the hospital. They pumped her stomach and found only coagulated blood. The doctor seemed confused when I mentioned the missing arm and the disembowelment. We get this sort of thing more than you'd think, he explained. Hikers go off into the woods without adequate preparation. They get lost, disoriented, some of them lose touch with reality. Just be glad you're alive. Olivia still has digestive problems, aches. She walks with a limp and can't use her left arm. I still have daily migraines. Psychosomatic, they tell us, one psychologist after another. The drugs help to dull the pain, but whenever I look at my wife, I see an open belly and a bloody stump. She averts her gaze when I pass by, but days after leaving the hospital, I worked up the nerve to look in the mirror. Nails, around a dozen of them, tapped deeply into my head. We remembered Marty a couple weeks after we were found. I got in touch with his sister. She says she doesn't know who I am, that she's always been an only child. Company emails, nothing. Wedding photos, nothing. They never found his blue Jetta, and I doubt they ever will. That thing ate Martin, and not just his body, his existence. To my surprise, the Polaroids I took from the basement were still in my pocket when we were found. They don't prove our story, but they seemed like proof of something, so I posted them on an online forum centered around Blue Ridge mountain history. Weeks passed, and I had forgotten about it. Then one day, I got a message from McCormick 413. I recognize the family in your pictures. Sad story, horrible story. I came up with the boy, Bobby Stratford. Good kid as I recall, though it's been some years now. Daddy of the family was Big Earl Stratford. He gone off on an overnight in the woods with their little girl, Penny. Neither came back, hide or hair, just up and vanished. It was a big story at the time for those around, but in truth there weren't much folks around. Small pond kind of thing. Anyway, some time passed and people forgot about Big Earl and Little Pen. Mama of the family's name was Helen, and after her man went to ground, nobody saw much of her or Bobby or their eldest, Alice, anymore. Then one day in winter, maybe 73, a ranger found Alice wandering the woods alone. Died of exposure the day she got into the hospital. They didn't find Bobby and Helen in their cottage, but they did find blood, and a few years later, a mess of bones buried out back. Thing is, I heard that when they done the autopsy on Alice, her stomach was full of meat, human meat. Some folks said she ate her whole family, others that it was just Bobby and Helen. A couple locals say she caught her death in the cold looking for another meal. Like I said, sad and horrible. Be well, brother. Alice Stratford, the name taps in my mind. The girl with the dollhouse. The thing that drove my friend to suicide and fed on my wife for days. I didn't tell Olivia about the email. She's been through enough. After remembering Marty, she began to remember someone else. Chris Harris. The name rang a bell. He was Marty's husband. He loved Otis Redding. Marty called him his Frisco Bay. After the song, that song, I started to remember Chris too. Stirring drinks, dancing in the sunken living room. Olivia and I don't talk about it much. She's been through enough. I don't want to burden her with all of the memories that have been slowly seeping back into my head. And I don't have the heart to tell her that just recently, I've begun to remember another guest of the cottage. Evelyn, our daughter.